Hey, how's it going? My name is Highlands, and today I'm going to be bringing you my Magicka Warden build video for PvP for the Harrowstorm patch. This build is going to mainly be focused on Battlegrounds and no CP PvP. I'm not going to be talking really about the basics of skills and how they work, but I kind of will be talking about how you can use them and how they synergize with each other, and that's pretty applicable to any kind of PvP. So absolutely stick around for that if you're interested. But without further ado, let's get started here. First, we'll take a look at our stats because this is kind of a weird stat pool here. Um, we've got all our attributes into Magicka, but we've only got about 25k max mag. We're running with 1800 spell or Magicka recovery, excuse me, unbuffed. Um, that's really important. We're going to pretty much need that. Um, Anything less is going to really hurt to sustain with this low of a mag pool. We've also got 22k max health, which is pretty important for our healing. You'll see that in a second. 10k max stam, that's all good and fine. Got about 1800 spell damage unbuffed. These are our resistances here, about 18.5 and 16.7 on the physical. And we got about 7.6k spell pen. Crit's really not too important here. This isn't a crit build. Anything that crits is just a nice little bonus for us. We're running the Achinarch Mundus. This is going to give us a little bit of extra recovery. And we're running the Clockwork Citrus Fillet Food. This is going to give us max health, health recovery, max stam, or excuse me, max mag, and mag recovery. We'll get on to our gear here. Two-piece blood spawn, heavy head, medium shoulder, pretty typical stuff. This is going to give us ulti-gen and our increased physical spell resist. And by the way, I'm a Nord, I forgot to mention that. Nord is probably best in slot, I think, for this kind of tankier brawler type mage. But you can definitely run like a Dark Elf or Breton or a High Elf, anything like that. Any sort of Magicka damage race is going to be fine too, but I like Nord for this personally. So yeah, first set's Blood Spawn here, our monster set. We're also running Buffer the Swift here. This is going to give us max mag, 2 lines of armor, and then the 5-piece bonus is going to reduce damage taken from players by 10%. This is really big, and this is going to synergize really well with our Ice Fortress here. It's our armor buff. That's going to help us be pretty tanky too. Our second set we're running here, we got this on our back bar, but we have 3 pieces on our body. It's Clever Alchemist. This is going to give us 2 pieces of max health, which is pretty important for our healing. Like I said, I'll get into that in a bit. We're going to get spell damage, and then when we drink a potion off our back bar, we're going to get a rush of energy, increasing our spell damage by 650 for 20 seconds, which is quite a bit of time to have that big of a spell damage buff, so it's really, really useful. And then you notice we're only running this on our back bar. That's because we have the Master's Lightning Staff on our front bar. I went sharpened on this. I like sharpened personally. Nirnhone could work, but I would rather have the sharpened. It's going to hit harder with your shulks and stuff like that. I would not run infused on this build. It's really not like a super duper burst build. So, like, it's bursty, but it's not. It's like sustained damage. It's like decently quick sustained damage. It's not quite like hardcore burst, but it's not quite, long drawn out fights of attrition either. So yeah, the Master Staff is going to reduce the cost of our Destructive Touch by 30%, which is really, really nice, and it's going to increase the damage by flat 2,000 damage, the direct damage there. That scales really, really nicely in no CP and Battlegrounds. It still scales well in CP too, but it's going to benefit a little bit more in no CP. Got a Frostglyph on there. We're going to benefit from some passives there, so that's going to smack pretty hard. Our traits on our back bar are defending and sturdy. It's just going to help us tank a little more. Because our back bar is mainly our defensive bar, we don't have any real super offensive stuff on there, even though we are popping our potion on there for the buff. And we've got 3 infused on our jewelry as well. 1 Magicka recovery glyph and 2 spell damage glyphs. I opted to go all impen on this build with just all max man glyphs because I'm running Race Against Time, as you will see in a moment, which is going to give us snare immunity and going to save us from having to be roll dodging all the time. If you'd like to not run Race Against Time, maybe you don't have the Psijic skill line or something, I would recommend at least 1 well fitted, just to have a little bit of cost reduction on your roll dodges and sprinting and stuff like that, because that's pretty beneficial to have. So that's our gear, and we'll get into our skills now. So we got Shock Clench here first. This is going to be dealing our explosive AoE shock damage buffed up by our Master's Staff. It's going to apply minor vulnerability because it's dealing shock damage. Pretty self-explanatory. Only costs 1700 Magicka. Very cheap with the Master's Staff, so it's easy to pump a lot of these out and do a lot of AoE damage in conjunction with shocks. Our second skill is Arctic Blast. This is a pretty key skill for Wardens, more specifically Mag Warden. But this is going to be our burst heal. It's going to give us a little bit of healing over time afterwards. It's going to give us our frost damage, damage over time around us, and it's going to be our stun as well. Stun is unblockable too, so it synergizes really well with Ice Comet and stuff like that, and also our Northern Storm. But yeah, this scales with max health, so that's why the 2 lines of max health from Clever Alchemist are pretty helpful, especially with minor toughness. Go ahead and pop this Betty here. We'll have almost 24k. Yeah, 24k max health. So that'll be about a 6k burst heal. So it goes from kind of a mediocre burst heal to an okay burst heal. So yeah, that's that. Shocks, third skill, big AoE skill. It's going to apply Major Breach, very self-explanatory. I'm not going to spend too much time here. Same thing with Blue Betty. It's going to be our spell damage buff, giving us Major Sorcery. It's going to give us some Magicka back over time. One thing I do want to note, it says that the Netch cleanses every 5 seconds, but you can spam the Netch and just cast it like 3 or 4 times if you're really not, taking too much heat directly. And that's probably more optimal to get 2 or 3, random dots or debuffs off of you other than spamming Arctic Blast, because this is a free skill, so you're gonna save Magicka that way. Our fourth skill is Bird of Prey. This is going to give us minor berserk when it's slotted and we're on the front bar, and it's going to be our movement speed buff as well. One thing I do want to note, we are benefiting from advanced species passive from these 3 skills, our animal companion skills, so we get 6% damage increased from having these 3 skills slotted, as well as 8% from the minor berserk, so we're stacking up some pretty nice damage done. Additionally, we benefit from Piercing Cold, increases your magic and frost damage by 10%, so that's basically buffing up our shocks, our Arctic Blast, our Storm, and our Gripping Shards on our back bar, which I'll get to in a moment. The only thing that's not going to benefit from that is Shock Clench, but we're buffing that up with the Master Staff, so that's alright. Our ultimate here is Ice Comet. This synergizes very well with Arctic Blast. The Ice Comet takes about 3 seconds to come down from the sky and actually hit the target. Arctic Blast takes 3 ticks, or 3 hits on an enemy to stun them. These don't have to be consecutive, so you can miss 2 hits and still get a stun because it lasts 5 seconds and ticks once every second. So, if you're sticking on top of someone pretty good and you activate Arctic Blast, you can light attack weave right into the Ice Comet, and as long as you hit that stun and hit those 3 ticks, it will stun right before your Ice Comet comes down and hits, making it basically impossible to block it, and that's some big burst right there. on a single target. So that's super nifty little combo. Helps to take out some tankier targets if you don't have quite enough burst on someone with Storm here, because it's a lot of damage, but it's not all instantaneous. You know, it's over 8 seconds. Gives a lot of people opportunities to heal and stuff through it. So yeah, that's our front bar. We also get a little bit of max mag on here from the Mages Guild passive. We get 2% mag recovery and 2% max mag for having Ice Comet slotted here, so that's another reason we slot that here. And we're also getting 500 physical and spell resist for having Arctic Blast here. Every Winter's Embrace skill is going to give us 500 physical and spell resistance each. Excuse me. So now for our back bar here, we got Gripping Shards. This is going to be an AoE Frost dot. It's going to immobilize and root people. Has a snare. The skill's off of our max health. You can definitely use the other morph if you want to do more damage and kind of summon this from a distance. This summons right underneath you at your location. So yeah, you see it kind of goes behind me if I just hop. But yeah, so it's a really good skill to kind of just control the area. Warden is kind of a control-based class, I'd like to think. You know, they're able to lock down an area very well. Better than, I'd say, almost any other class besides arguably Necromancer. But, you know, I'm not here to debate that. Our second skill here is Living Trellis. You can switch this out for Leeching Vines if you'd like. I would prefer the little bit of a burst heal. One thing to keep in mind, if you're not running Clever Alchemist, your health is going to be lower. The lower your health gets, the lower this burst heal is going to heal for, and the closer the burst heal from Living Vines will be to the burst heal from Arctic Blast. So, effectively, this is almost giving you, you know, half of your burst heal every 10 seconds automatically. It's also healing you reactively if you get hit for 1400 damage, which is pretty solid. This happens once every second, so theoretically it can happen 10 times. And the biggest thing here is that this is proccing 2 passes automatically. The first one is that it's going to proc Accelerated Growth when we're under 40% health and we take damage and heal. It's going to proc and give us Major Mending for 3 seconds, increasing our healing by 25%, which is really awesome. That's a really important buff to have for healing. Our second one is Nature's Gift. Every time you heal on myself or an ally, we're going to get 250 Magner stand back, whichever pool is lower. It's really helpful. It's going to give us a little bit of sustain, especially if we're missing out on some stam. You know, we had to just break free and we get a heal. This is going to give us a little bit of increased stam recovery. So that's really helpful. Our third skill is Shimmer Shield. This is going to give us a projectile shield, absorbing 3 projectiles for 17,600 damage. Very large projectile shield. It's also going to restore half to 2/3 of the Magicka if you absorb every projectile, giving you 750 back every projectile. And we're going to get Major Heroism. That's a really important skill to have. Because of that buff, Alt Gen is really important. It's really easy to build into Ulti-Gen on a Warden. You know, we're getting Magicka, or Ultimate back every time one of our animal companions is unsummoned or casted. So, Shulks, for example, or Blue Betty, it's going to give us Ultimate every time we cast it. Bloodspawn is giving us Ultimate. This is giving us Ultimate. So we're going to build this ult up pretty quick. Our fourth skill here is Race Against Time. We're really just running this for the immobilization removal. It's also pretty nice because the Sigik passive is giving us a little bit of a shield on our back bar to add a little bit of meat to our sorting board there. Fifth skill is Ice Fortress, that's our armor buff, pretty self-explanatory. And then Northern Storm as well. I don't think I have to explain this one for you guys. One thing to know though, if you really are in a lot of trouble, you can pop this for major protection. It's really going to be helpful. You know, that's going to give you almost 50% mitigation from players once you have Northern Storm up. So when you have that up, plus, you know, you have major mending, procking, and you got both your heals going off, you're gonna be really safe for the most part, unless you're really severely outnumbered or severely out of position. So yeah, that's pretty much my Mag Warden build. I really wouldn't move any of this stuff around too much. I'd say Race Against Time is kind of a flex on the back bar, and so is Gripping Shards. But as far as the front bar goes, I would kind of keep this in place. You know, if you didn't want to run Ice Comet, then I would say, okay, you can move Arctic Blast around. I use Ice Comet a lot, so I keep Arctic Blast on my front bar because I find it almost impossible to be able to hit the stun and cast Ice Comet and stick on someone while I'm having to just switch bars around. I kind of just spaghetti and mess it up. That's something you think you can do, go for it. I personally would rather have it here, but you know, you can throw a fourth Ice Winter's Embrace skill back here. You'll get like 2,000. Yeah, we got 2,500 spell resist and physical resist. We already got 4. Forgot about Storm. So that's another thing. We're getting really, really beefy on our back bar here from our passives. Warden really has some amazing passives to deal with and use. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed this build video. If you've got any questions, absolutely let me know. I'll include some footage at the end of this just so you guys can see the build in action. I also stream on Twitch every day at twitch.tv/I'mHighlands. That'll be down in the description as well if you want to come catch some live Mag Warden action, get in on some theory crafting and that sort of thing. Definitely come by. And other than that, thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate you guys watching through to the end. If you did, you're absolutely a legend. And I will see you guys in the next one.
I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
Gotta relax.
This is Earth Radio. And now here's human music.
Human music. I like it. I like it. I like it.